个特殊的形式
The
是
city of Shanghai
和政策呢，它是也是有阶段性的。
像现在我们的孩子去了美国，
My friends met in Shanghai, married in Shanghai.
Was what is in the need of Israel is in the capability of China, and what is the need.
We left Germany at the end of 1938. The suffering in Germany, well, I didn't live. Are you familiar with the term Kristallnacht?
Yeah, I heard about that.
That was November, the night of November 8th, I believe,
yeah.
1938, when the Nazis went to all the Jewish shops and smashed their windows.
Mm-hmm.
In Berlin, we lived in a Jewish neighborhood in an apartment building, but on the ground floor of this apartment building, there were a lot of Jewish shops, and they were all smashed. Now, I don't remember this, of course, as a 4.5-year-old. I cannot remember this incident. But for many years, even as a grown-up, I was already a grown-up and was in graduate school. Whenever I heard the sound of broken glass, I had a very abnormal reaction to the sound of broken glass. And I one time discussed this with a psychiatrist, and he questioned where I came from, and he thought this may be the experience that I experienced as a 4.5-year-old somehow did register. And today in the United States, we would call this post-traumatic distress syndrome, PTSD or something like that. Today, I think they have a name for that. But then of course, we left. My father was a Viennese. He grew up in Vienna and studied in Vienna. And he was a chemist, an academic chemist. But near the 1938, when Hitler marched into Austria, I think it was in March 1938, my father being an Austrian, he was also now exposed to, he lost his job in Berlin. He worked in a sugar factory in Berlin as a chemist. He lost his job, and after Kristallnacht, he went into hiding. They were looking for him, and he went into hiding. And then my mother, and that's when my parents decided that they needed to leave Germany. That there was no other way but to leave Germany. And my mother went around to travel agencies, and she found out that the city of Shanghai was an open port. That meant that anybody, you arrived in Shanghai by ship, and you get off the ship and got into a rickshaw and went into town. Nobody checked your passport, nobody checked your luggage, there was no custom control. The four of us, we went back to Shanghai for about 2 weeks. Not to Shanghai, we took a tour of the Yangtze River, and we spent about 4 or 5 days in Shanghai. That was a very dramatic experience, at least for me. Of course, we went back to the ghetto, and the house that I lived in was exactly the same as it was 60 years before. An amazing experience.
Would you please tell us more about that visit?
Well, it was just a very emotional visit to go back to where you grew up. We went, of course, back into the Shanghai ghetto, and I found the house that I lived in, And then the people who lived in that house were wondering what we were doing there. I happened to have a photo album with me with a picture of myself standing in front of the house. Once they saw that picture, they knew exactly who we were, and they even invited us up into the rooms that we lived in 60 years before. Very gracious people.
So what's your impression on Shanghai after your visit?
Well, Shanghai, it's completely unrecognizable. It's such a large and metropolis city now. But the Chinese government is preserving the Shanghai ghetto. At least 10 years ago they were. There's still there's a Jewish museum in the ghetto. And earlier this year they even they built a copper wall with all the names of all the people who lived in Shanghai carved into the wall. That's part of the Jewish museum, and that's being preserved by the government. I believe it's the federal government, and I don't know what the who is paying for this. I'm not sure. But whether it's federal or just the city of Shanghai, I don't know. And just outside of the ghetto, there is a park. In those days, it was called Wayside Park. The street that we lived on was called Wayside Road. Today, it's called Ho Shanglu. But those days, it was called Wayside Road. And the park across the street is called Wayside Park, and there is there's also a plaque dedicated to the Jewish community who lived there during the war, during the Second World War.
So, Peter, have you ever tried to do something to boost the Jewish and the Chinese relations?
I belong to for about a year, I belong to an organization here in New Jersey that's called the Holocaust Council. And they take Holocaust survivors and they send us out to talk about our experience, our Holocaust experience, to different schools. So about once every 2 weeks, I give a brief talk at a high school or an elementary school to young people, to students, and describe my experience in Shanghai, growing up in Shanghai. So that is probably the most active role that I play in describing my experience with China, or my experience within the city of Shanghai.